One of the things we think about at Christmas, of course, is baby Jesus. That's the whole reason for Christmas, right? And when Jesus was born, his mother Mary put him in a car seat and buckled him up tight, right? No, she put him in a really nice crib and rocked him back and forth, right? No, what did she put him in? A manger. And what is a manger? It's what animals eat out of. It's a box that animals eat out of. And so a few years ago, I was thinking, I wonder where the manger that Mary used to put Jesus in, I wonder where that manger came from. And I wrote a little story that I call The Legend of the Manger. And this is just from my imagination. So I want to share with you this story, and you can see if you think maybe this is where the manger came from. Now, we all know that when Jesus was born, he was laid in a manger. And most of us think that it was probably just an ordinary manger, and in many ways it was. It looked almost like every other manger that was in use in Israel at the time. And it certainly did the same job of every other manger in Israel at the time. It was there to feed animals. But this manger was special even before it held baby Jesus. And to understand just how special, we have to go back a few years before Jesus was born. Living in Bethlehem at that time was a man named Benjamin, and the delight of his life was his young 4-year-old son, Amos. And when Amos turned 4, his father Benjamin made him a very special gift. It was a large wooden box. And it had a lid on it, and the hinges of the lid were made with goat skin. And the inside of the box was lined with soft sheepskin. And Benjamin told his son, Amos, this box is for you to put your most precious possessions. Put only those things in this box that will make you truly happy. Now, the thing Amos loved most at that time was a little cart and a little wooden donkey that his father had made for him, because his father was a carpenter. And so he put his donkey and the little donkey cart in that box. And sometimes he would turn the box on its side, and he would pretend that the box was the barn for the donkey. And the donkey would come in the barn and go out of the barn, and go in the barn and come out of the barn. And Amos was truly happy, but not for long. Amos got a little bit older, and a little donkey and a donkey cart seemed like kind of a baby toy, and he really didn't like them anymore. And so one day his father made for him out of wood some toy soldiers. And one of the soldiers was really, really little, and one of the soldiers was really, really big, and all of the other soldiers were just an ordinary size. And his father told him, Amos, the little soldier is David, and the big soldier is Goliath. And all of the other soldiers are the soldiers that were in Israel's army. And Amos loved his soldiers. And he decided that now the box could be King Saul's palace. And David would go into the palace, and he would say to the king, I will fight Goliath. And he would go back out, and he would find Goliath. And all the time, every time that David fought Goliath, David always won. And so Amos kept all of those soldiers in his special box. And he was truly happy. But not for very long. Because Amos got a little bit bigger. And now playing a toy soldier seemed to be a little too childish. And so he just took his special box and put it off to the side and kind of forgot about it, until one day he was at school and they were having races, and he won a foot race. And his teachers gave to him a wreath made out of olive leaves, just like they gave the athletes who were in the Olympics in Greece. And Amos was so happy to have that wreath, because it reminded him that he won the race. And so he took that wreath and he put it in his special box. And he was truly happy. But not for too long. Because the wreath got old and withered up, and all of the leaves fell off of it. And so after a while, he just had to throw the wreath away. Well, about this time, Amos was starting to notice girls. And he knew that young women really like it when a young man dresses up in really fine clothing. And he didn't have a lot of fine clothing. His father was only a carpenter after all. But he did have one really nice outfit. It was pure white and had a colorful sash. And every time he wore it, it seemed to him the girls paid a little more attention to him. And so he thought, I'm going to keep this in my special box because it's special to me and because that will keep it safe. And he was truly happy, but not for too long. You're getting it. Because he also discovered that although young women liked it if a young man dressed nice, they also wanted to know that he had a promising future ahead of him, that he was going to be able to make money if he was going to have a wife. And when Amos tried to do the carpentry that his father did, he just wasn't very good at it. And he didn't think he was ever going to be a carpenter like his father was. And so he begged his father, can I go and be an apprentice in the Bethlehem Inn, and maybe I can be an innkeeper? And so his father let him go off to be an apprentice in the inn, which meant that he had to live there because he had to be there all night long in case a guest needed something late in the night. And the innkeeper was a kindly old man, and he told Amos that if he saved up his money, that he would sell his inn to Amos. So Amos saved as much money as he could, and he did chores for people around the house, around the town, and he also worked for his father in the carpentry shop so he could save his money. And where do you think he put his money? In his special box. And he kept it there, and he watched the money grow bigger and bigger and bigger and more and more and more. And one day he had enough to buy the inn, and he bought the inn. And Amos was truly happy, but not for long. Because he had worked so hard to save up money to buy the inn, he hadn't had time for any friends. And he didn't have time for any girlfriends. And although he had this inn, he felt kind of lonely because people just came and went and stayed at his inn, and he still worked really hard. And one day he looked at his box, and tears began to roll down his face. And he said, how foolish I have been. I will never find happiness by trying to fill this box. And he ripped the top of the box off. And he broke it into 4 pieces. And he nailed those 4 pieces to the box like legs. And he took them out to his stable and he put it in the barn. And he said, all this is good for is to use as a manger to feed the animals. And he put hay in his box and he fed the animals using his special box. And every day when he went out to feed the animals and he saw that box, it reminded him how sad he was. He doesn't want the box back. He wanted something special, but he decided there was nothing that would make him happy that he could put in the box. But one night, after it had already gotten dark, during a busy time of the year when the census was going on, there was a little knock at the inn door. And he opened the door, and there was a very poor and ragged-looking couple standing there in the door. And they said, sir, do you have any room in the inn for us? And Amos said, I'm sorry, but my inn is full. And he was about ready to shut the door when something made him stop and take pity on that poor couple. Maybe it was the carpenter's tools that he saw hanging from Joseph's belt, and he remembered his father, the carpenter. Maybe it was their donkey, who looked kind of like that little wooden donkey he had had all those years before. Or maybe he just saw Mary and realized that she was pregnant and about to give birth to a baby, and she needed a safe and warm place for that to happen. But he said to them, I don't have any room, but I do have room in my stable if you would like to stay there. And they nodded that they would. And Amos took them out back and got them set up in his stable. And Joseph closed the door, and Amos went back to sleep. Several hours later, there was all this excited banging on the door again. And he went and he opened the door, and there were all these shepherds there. And they said, Amos, do you know where the king is? He was born tonight. The king was born tonight. These angels came and they told us all about it, and it has to be somewhere around here. And Amos said, I don't know anything about a king being born. And he said, but wait a minute. This poor couple, they came and I put them in my stable, and the woman looked like she was about to give birth, but she didn't look like the mother to a king, but we can go check. And so they went out to the stable and they knocked on the door of the stable, and Joseph opened the door. And Amos said, I'm sorry to bother you, but has the baby been born yet? And Joseph said, yes, he has. And Amos said, well, if it wouldn't be too much trouble, could we come in and see the baby? And Joseph said, yes, come in and share our joy. And so the shepherds came in, and as soon as they saw the baby, they fell on their knees and they worshiped him. And Amos came in next, and what he saw made him stop, and he was frozen, and his mouth fell open, because the baby was in his special box that was now being used as a manger. And all of a sudden, Amos remembered the 42nd Psalm that he had learned as a little boy many, many years ago that said, my soul thirsts for God. I'm thirsty for God. When will I get to see the face of God? And Amos knew, somehow he just knew that he was looking at the face of God in that little baby in the manger. He was the Messiah. He was the Son of God. And now, the most precious possession ever was in that manger. Well, lots of other just amazing things happened. These kings from the east came, and they gave gifts to the king, and they worshiped the king. And lots of other people came and worshiped the king. And at one point, Mary and Joseph went to Jerusalem to have Jesus dedicated, and then they brought him back. And then one night, in the middle of the night, Mary and Joseph and Jesus left. And when Amos went out the next morning, there was only the manger there with a little bit of swaddling clothes still left in the manger. And Amos decided that he would use that box always as a manger to remind him that the Messiah had been there, the most precious possession of all. And every day when he went out to feed the animals, he was reminded that the one thing that could bring true happiness had been in that manger. And now that one thing, the Son of God, was in his heart. And so he always had joy and peace all the days of his life.